just like that, it's 2025. We'd like to start by wishing you a happy new year from all of us here at LAMH, and we're at that time again when you get to listen to our lovely dulcet tones, giving further insight into the charity we work for, LAMH. It's me, Jamie, your host of the LAMH Podcast, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to a returning colleague of mine. We've got Lucy here with us today from the first episode.
Hi everyone. I was expecting like the wee applause sounds to go there.
Nah, Chris is just looking like I'm not pressing that button.
No, it's good to be back. I'm excited to record today's episode.
Yes, how does it feel kind of being back? How was your Christmas? How was your New Year?
Just a bit busy, I think, is that sort of saying come back to work for a bit of a break.
Yeah. I've actually not heard that one before, but
there you go.
I totally understand that. So, a wee quick update on the podcast. We are currently looking to release one episode a month. Now, we know it may not always be the case, but in doing this, we should hopefully help with the kind of routine and the consistency of the release. So, thank you again to those who have listened to the first couple of episodes of the podcast, which are available on Spotify and Amazon Music. And at the end of the day, this is why we're doing it. So, thank you again for supporting this platform, and hopefully you are enjoying the content. We've got a bit to get through today, so we are going to jump straight into it and the main topic of discussion. So now we've let the suspense build up from the first episode. We have introduced ourselves as mental health and wellbeing workers, and we've left it pretty much like that. So therefore, it's only right to put the listeners out of their misery and explain exactly what that is and what that means.
Yeah, so as mental health and wellbeing workers, we work in partnership with NHS as part of the primary care mental health and wellbeing service. Just a bit of a mouthful.
That's a bit of a mouthful, hearing that kind of read out loud there. So I don't know about you, I think seeing that name written out is, it seems quite weird because we're used to the abbreviations. So we might just kind of refer to that as PCMH throughout the podcast. That might help.
So we get referrals from the PCMH nurses in the PCMH service who are situated in most GP practices across Lanarkshire. So if you want to speak to a mental health nurse, then contact your GP for further information. So Jamie and I are both part of the service in South Lanarkshire. We've got our colleagues over in North as well. That's where Anne, who was on the last episode, is from. So those who are referred from the medical practices in the North can work with one of our North teams. Yeah, so when you speak with the mental health nurse, they'll basically assess the support that they can offer, looking to provide you with support and resources for their mental health concerns. Part of that resource and information includes our own service. So if the nurse thinks that you would benefit from our service and you meet the criteria, a referral will be made into our own service.
And that referral, it can be made on a one-to-one basis with one of the mental health and wellbeing workers, or you can be put into one of our psychoeducational groups. Psychoeducational, basically kind of implementing coping strategies and self-management strategies into your everyday life. And again, it is important to know that this service is accessed through that referral pathway only that Lucy just spoke about.
Yeah, I think it's good that you've talked a wee bit about what psychoeducational actually is. I think sometimes we say that and nobody actually
I remember the first time when I came across the word, I didn't have a full understanding of what it was. So, but yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's learning those kind of coping strategies and management strategies to implement yourself into your everyday life to try and cope with that every day.
I think so. Through the support that we offer, it looks to help those that are suffering from mild to moderate mental health by discussing ways to implement self-management strategies and or supporting you with connecting with community resources and services. Now, our service is short term, so we'll be able to work with people for 6 to 8 sessions.
In terms of the non-clinical aspect of our service, so we're not doctors, we're not psychologists, counsellors, we're not going to kind of dig into the past of people's mental health or diagnose any medical condition. And I think it is important, Lucy, that we highlight that just because that misunderstanding has happened before a couple of times.
Yeah, definitely. And it can be detrimental to the experience. I think if you're showing up looking at one thing and then getting something else, then obviously it can kind of throw you a wee bit. So it's always good to kind of know what you're coming in for. I think a lot of people think that receiving clinical support is the only way to go. Yeah. However, when they actually come and work with us and see what non-clinical work actually means, it really does make the difference. Non-clinical has a lot of benefits, and that's not just from our own perspective. We find that we get, very kind feedback from the folk that we're working with, and found that non-clinical can be really helpful, even if they weren't coming for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just kind of what you were touching on there about that kind of non-clinical support being really important, because it does take that pressure off the clinical aspect as well. I know rising numbers of kind of waiting lists in GPs, hospitals, practices, so it can be really good and helpful to kind of have that bridging the gap almost for people who might not need the clinical support and maybe just need that kind of implementation of the strategies that we speak about in the groups. I think you're speaking about some of the feedback there. I think we do have a quote. Okay, reading that out, Lucy, we've got a quote from somebody who has just recently used the service and is more than happy for us to share these words.
Yeah, so the service has enabled me to improve my mental health and knowledge of stress and anxiety, helped me to put in healthier routines and helped me to regulate my emotions through mindfulness. I was impressed by the level of skills, knowledge and friendliness that I've received and benefited greatly.
That's fantastic. It's always nice kind of hearing the feedback, because I think when we're doing the job, obviously we can see the content, we can kind of see the changes and we know the benefits it can have. So kind of hearing when somebody kind of just takes it and runs with it like that and they can see the differences just those wee small steps make in their day-to-day routine.
Definitely. I think it's great for us, getting to see the feedback and kind of having that written down. And, it's good for us as workers to kind of see that the difference is being made. Just gives you a good buzz, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So what we'll do now, I think we'll go into once we receive the referral. So we've spoken a wee bit at the start about the kind of pathway into our service, about us getting referred into from the PCMH nurses. So Lucy, do you want to tell us a wee bit more about what happens when that referral lands on our desk?
Yeah, So I'll try and make this not sound like I'm just spouting information into the mic, but so once we get the referral from the mental health nurse, we'll look to make contact with the service user within 48 hours of receiving the referral. Now, we are Monday to Friday 9 to 5 service, so the contact time may vary slightly.
Absolutely. So the mental health nurse would have described the service when completing the referral, and we will be there to fill in the gaps and answer any questions that you may have. What we'll look to do is we'll try and arrange an initial meeting with yourself. So we'll give you a rough outline of the service over the phone, and we'll look to give us a chance to meet with yourself, get a gist of where you're at in this moment in time, and looking at what you can manage, what you're not managing to do in your day-to-day life. And from that allows us to kind of formulate an action plan with yourself, a person-centred action plan, focusing on supporting the needs of yourself, of that person, and that becomes apparent from the meeting, but also in line with the initial referral from the mental health nurse.
Yeah, so this links in back into what we were saying earlier with the support, including the kind of psychoeducational resources to help to develop this self-management strategy that we've been talking about, as well as just supporting and connecting with additional services, groups, activities, classes and so on and so forth. Basically just to get people, in the community seeing what's out there. I think a lot of people don't know what is actually in their community and what's been going on. So I think it's quite nice when you get people out there meeting people in their community. I've said that like 3 times. And making these connections.
Take that point home, Lucy. If you've got to say it 4 or 5 times, as long as you're hammering the point home.
Really want to get it in there. Yeah. Anyway, talking about our service, I think it'd be a good idea if we just kind of talk a wee bit about, what we've done. So Jamie, do you want to kind of let us know?
Yeah, well, what I was going to just touch on was that idea of the person-centred service that I just spoke about and how that aligns with the values of the organisation. So person-centred care, with LAMH, we are really striving towards having our support being person-centred, meaning the people that we are working with are at the forefront of the care, because that's what we're looking to support. So within the values of the organisation, we're looking at focusing on the individuals receiving care, respecting their values, their preferences, their needs, their personal goals. That's what we're working towards. We're not working towards our outcomes. That's the full point of the initial meeting, is to get an understanding of the main idea of support that they're looking for, and then just asking themselves, what do you want to get out of engaging with us? And then that gives us a focal point for the work that we're doing to work towards that. So we can then tailor that support according to their specific circumstances. Tailoring that support again allows us to not one size fits all. It's like horses for courses. You've got to try different things with different people, just depending on their needs and on their outcomes. What we'll look to do in that meeting as well is involve understanding the whole person and creating a care plan that reflects both their desires and their care needs. Does that kind of sum up what we're looking at?
Definitely. I think you've kind of summed it up very well. I think kind of getting into that importance of that person-centred experience. I think people again are worried that maybe they're coming along for these psychoeducational things that we're talking about, but it's just information and they don't realise that it will actually be very tailored to whatever they've told us is kind of going on for them. And it does make such a difference when we can basically take all the resources we have, the information we have, and make it work for that person. And
later on, I think we'll touch on the kind of the groups that we run. Obviously in the groups are a lot more general, so they can only be tailored to a certain extent, but with it being covering quite a vast amount of topics and discussions, there hopefully is always kind of something in those group sessions that somebody can kind of take away from. We're always kind of available a couple of minutes, 5, 10, 15 minutes before the group starts, setting up and stuff, and we're also there afterwards as well. So if anybody was wanting to kind of have a wee chat about the kind of content discussed and to enhance their understanding of it, we're more than happy to take that time.
As I think you'll still get quite a lot of just coming out of a group as well, which, like I said, we'll talk about in a wee minute. Getting ahead of myself.
Yes, you're getting too excited. Give her a microphone and there you go, she doesn't stop talking. So I think that as well. I think this as well. I think we'll just take a wee. I will take a wee break. I sound like a dolphin now. I went ow ow ow. That's a sea lion. We'll just edit that out. It's fine. I think this is where we will take a break. After a short ad break, we will go into more detail about the coping strategies we discussed in our psychoeducational group sessions and the ones that we roll out in the community. In fact, speaking about those community groups, we have somebody who recently participated in one of those. We have Kerry Ann, who was happy to share her information and her experience on engaging. Hi, so I'm here with Kerry Ann, who is recently engaged with our service. So Kerry Ann, I'd like to ask yourself, what are the benefits that you've felt that you've been able to take away from LAMH?
I feel the benefits have been unbelievable. I've learned so many new skills that I never knew before, and a lot of coping strategies that I will use in my everyday life.
What support did you engage with to help find those coping strategies?
Well, I feel stuff like the skills that we learned, meditation, things like that, I use them as after the first day of the first course. So I feel I will use them in my everyday life, all the skills that we've learned.
And what was it that you were originally looking to get out of working with the service?
Well, I was just really looking in ways to cope with my mental health issues.
So what was it that you were originally looking to get out of working with the service?
I was actually looking to get help and support and maybe learn some coping strategies to deal with my everyday life struggles.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's something that you've achieved, you're working towards, or there's no change?
Yes, a massive change. The skills that I have learned on all 3 courses that I've done now are used in my everyday life, morning, noon and night, and I don't think I'll ever go back to the way I was.
Yeah. What courses was that you engaged with?
So I started with the mindfulness course, then I went on to Living Life to the Fullest, and then it was the cognitive behavioural therapy course.
Yeah, I was up to see this
and all of them are so different, but I thoroughly enjoyed each and every one and engaging with the new people and the staff that was teaching us.
Yeah, and that last one being the Decider Skills course, so you were actually piloting that because we were just trying to kind of start rolling that out. So how did you feel kind of being a guinea pig for that?
Oh, no, I really enjoyed it, and I felt the fact that they'd done things like role play and got really interacting with in the course made it more memorable, and it kind of, your skills stuck a lot more in your head because of the stuff that we were doing on the day-to-day course.
And before engaging with the course, what sort of feelings were there before you kind of came along to that first session?
I was super nervous. I was super nervous probably about the group setting and stuff like that, and speaking in kind of public, because I didn't think I'd be able to do it. But see, after the first day, all the nerves definitely disappeared, and I was such looking forward to the next week's course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that always helps to kind of go back and help for the next session.
It really, really does. And after each course as well, any questions you had or anything you were never put in the spot, you could speak to the staff member at the side, and I thoroughly enjoyed them all.
So how confident do you feel now maintaining your wellbeing out with the service?
I feel my confidence is massively improved because of learning these new skills. I'm able to deal with situations, i.e. learning to maybe say no in situations or self-care, things like that I never really took the time out to do before. But I think once you learn how to do it, you really will need to go back. So I'm meditating, doing my self-care each day, and it's made a massive difference. Massive.
Brilliant. And I think I'm led to believe as well you're looking to become a member as well of our charity. We're looking to, and obviously with that membership it allows you to kind of give feedback on courses that we run, any information that we hand out, the direction, discussions about our service. How do you feel becoming a member?
I'm so chuffed because I've literally been preaching these courses since I stopped doing them. I feel everybody should be practising mindfulness in their daily life. It would save a lot of stress for a lot of us if we just learned how.
And before we finish up, Kerry Ann, is there anything that you would like to kind of add or share about your experience experience with the service for anyone who's thinking about?
I would honestly recommend this to anybody struggling with mental health issues, big or small. I feel you might be a little bit nervous, but once you're here, you're in with the group and you've met whoever it is that's teaching you, they make you feel so comfortable, and you definitely won't regret doing it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much again for again.
Thank you.
And we're back. Before the break, we looked to give an insight into the ins and outs of the specific service myself and Lucy work for. Hopefully the information so far has been clear and helpful regarding the support that we offer and how we can be referred into our service. We're going to start this next section of the podcast by telling you about the different courses that we run and that you can be referred straight into via your mental health nurse and the GP practices.
Yeah, so instead of going through the formality of having an initial appointment with one of the workers for attending the group, instead you'll just go straight to the group. The nurse, GP, occupational therapist or advanced nurse practitioner will provide you with all the information that you need, and we'll communicate with you as a reminder about the group. Now, this does involve some responsibility on those who are attending the group, just to make sure that they are regularly attending the group themselves, so that you can really get the most out of, what's on offer. Hopefully these groups help to empower some positive risk taking as well.
Yeah, and I think just kind of touching on that a bit there, when people are, because obviously you're attending a group, if that's not something you're used to in challenging your anxiety, it can be really difficult. So on the letter, on the kind of text message that you receive from us telling you about the group details, we can get back in contact with ourselves and we can kind of help support connections into the group.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've had that a few times. It's just sometimes having a wee chat of saying, you'll come along, so-and-so will be there, walk in and kind of explaining it to them. Because it is a bit daunting to imagine, walking into a room. It's like the first day of school, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that kind of getting that foot through the door, having that help, having that support to overcome those potential barriers, having that kind of information there to alleviate the stress. Sometimes all it takes is, giving us a phone call and one of us can meet you at the front door, have a wee chat outside, have a wee chat on the phone before, taking that first step in. That's what we're here for. We're here to help.
Yeah, definitely.
At the end of engaging with the service, whether that be one-to-one or in a group, we do notify the mental health nurse of the engagement to allow them to update their records, let them know the work they've been doing and how they found the course, asking for a wee bit of feedback just for future reference. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go on to the groups that you can be referred into. So there's currently 4 courses that we run. We have a mindfulness course, Living Life to the Full, and we also run 2 90-minute workshops which talk about and discuss anxiety and low mood. So both, as I said, both the anxiety workshop and the low mood workshop are just one-off 90-minute workshops, and in these we discuss the topics and the relevant coping strategies associated with these 2 topics of discussion, whereas the mindfulness and the Living Life to the Full courses, they run for 4 and 6 weeks respectively. So that's mindfulness running for 4 weeks and Living Life to the Full running for 6 weeks. So Lucy, I'll pass it over to yourself. What one are you wanting to start with?
I'll start with Living Life to the Full. So Living Life to the Full, it's a 6-week course. It's underpinned by cognitive behavioural therapy, which essentially just looks to alter the unhelpful thinking patterns and behaviour that we might be having and commonly occur, during stressful times or when our mental health maybe just isn't doing so great.
Yeah, I think identifying those things in that kind of vicious cycle, noticing thoughts, noticing feelings, is always the kind of starting point to being able to do anything about them. If we want to kind of make those changes, we need to know what it is that we're tackling. So over in North Lanarkshire, we have several locations where we facilitate these groups. We have groups taking place in Coatbridge, Airdrie, Cumbernauld, Bellshill, Motherwell and Wishaw. And in South Lanarkshire, we also facilitate the 6-week Living Life to the Full course, and we operate these in Hamilton, Rutherglen, East Kilbride and Clydesdale, that area. So because it's a bit more rural, so we do kind of, depending on where the numbers are for those groups, we do move about those community venues a wee bit. And what I've found, but I know you've probably had a similar experience, Lucy, but these groups are just really good for normalising, just talking about your mental health. Normally that first session can feel so uncomfortable, and every ounce of your body just tell you not to go to it, just wanting to avoid that stress. But it's just that way of challenging that anxiety, challenging those feelings. Your body's just not used to that, so that often leads to potential avoiding the group, having those avoidance behaviours, which feels really good in the short term, but in the long term it keeps that vicious cycle spinning.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, at the groups as well, the connections that we see people building is also beneficial for the kind of social aspect of it. The kind of common sense of understanding can be really important to, you know, kind of challenge the stigma of mental health and understand that you're not alone. I think that's like one of the things that I see the most at groups is it's like this sort of relief of knowing, oh, I'm actually not alone in this. There's people experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
And as well, like just talking about living life to the full, and you were saying about, you know, once we understand ourselves, we can change it. That's, you know, why I like the first session, living life to the full, so much, just because it allows us to kind of really get into it.
Yeah, the amount of people I've heard come up to me like, when I'm talking to them and they say, oh, you must think I sound crazy, you must just... And I'm like, no, you just sound human. You just sound human. And I think when people go into the groups, they recognise that, and they recognise that they're not alone. And yeah, it might not be the exact same problem, but there's different kind of the way that we kind of respond to those different stressors are relatively similar, and we can find a kind of common sense of ground in that.
Definitely. It's like the majority of folk have, you know, they say like a thought they've been having or something they're struggling with, and somebody goes, oh, I've been basically the exact same as you, or I've got this going on. Yeah.
And you just see like almost that big sigh of relief, like, oh, phew, like I thought it was just me.
It's such a nice thing to see, you know, just the human aspect, but also as a facilitator as well. It's just a good feeling for everyone.
Nice and rewarding to see that.
Yeah, so just speaking about living life to the full, I've actually got a wee bit of feedback here from someone that's been engaging with the course. So they've basically just said that engaging with living life to the full through LAMH has provided me with structure and routine and a chance to share, you know, their thoughts and ideas, and given them a reason to get up in the morning, and they're following through with the advice that they've been given. They feel less lonely, said that they're more motivated, and overall that their self-confidence is returning. And they said something lovely here. It's LAMH planted the seeds for a more positive future, and now I feel I'm starting to flourish.
Oh, that's a nice one. And that one's from a woman who is happy to be known only as the letter G, and that they're 60 years old. So obviously when we're getting feedback about the service, we totally understand the idea of kind of confidentiality. So we'll allow people to kind of sign a consent form before sharing their information and how they would like that information to be shared. But it's just really nice, isn't it, just to kind of hear real people, kind of their real experiences, and you just find it kind of really inspiring, you know, when somebody understands themselves a bit more, becomes a bit more comfortable in understanding themselves as well.
Definitely. It's so nice getting feedback. I think I've said that like 3 times.
That's nice.
But it is, like,
that's why we do it.
It's just great to see that people are actually, you know, especially people taking in the information and using it and getting to see the change in them. I think that's what's so good about the groups as well, is that we have 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and we get to see the change in people over. It's such an amazing feeling for kind of all involved.
Yeah. What are the benefits that you've been able to take away from working with LAMH?
I think when I first started the sessions, my anxiety was probably at the worst it's ever been, and I feel like now I've kind of learned to accept that it's just part of who I am, and I just need to, like, I can live with it now, and I feel like I've got the tools, I suppose, to deal with it and go through my day and not be as anxious as what I was.
Fantastic. And so what were you originally looking to get out of the service?
Just obviously how to manage my anxiety and not let it rule my life anymore.
And you say you're working towards that as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's made a massive difference.
What sort of tools, what kind of support did you engage with to get those tools?
We've done a lot of mindfulness, like meditation, and we ran through kind of like the science behind anxiety and why it does what it does to your body, and I think that helped me understand a lot more about why I feel the way I feel.
Was that something you were aware of before engaging with the service?
I mean, a couple of things, but I learned so much more after doing the sessions.
What were the initial feelings before engaging with the service, before that kind of first meeting?
I was nervous because it's not something that I've ever done before or really spoke about properly how I'd been feeling. So yeah, I was nervous, but also excited to hopefully be able to move past how I was feeling.
So how comfortable, how confident do you feel after your support? How comfortable do you feel maintaining your wellbeing out with the service?
Yeah, I definitely feel confident that I'll be able to keep doing what I'm doing and reminding myself that it's just a bad day. It's not, everything's not crumbling.
And then finally, anything, would you like to add anything or share anything about your experience with the service for anyone who's thinking about being feeling a bit anxious themselves?
I think obviously if you do feel like you need support, it's the right thing to reach out and get help, and I would definitely recommend anyone who does need help to do it and get help that they need.
So we've kind of spoke about the Living Life to the Full course. So do you want to talk a wee bit about mindfulness, Jamie?
Yes, yeah, I'm happy to go into the mindfulness segment. I'm really looking forward to talking about this, but it's trying to contain it within a time limit, because honestly I can't speak highly enough of the 4-week course, or just also mindfulness as a concept. I think it's because right at the start I was a bit sceptical at first, learning about mindfulness. However, diving into the deep end with it, learning about it myself, practicing it myself before facilitating it, has really allowed me to kind of properly involve myself in it. And as I said, I'm going to try and keep this short. So I think as well what we could do, I don't know if you maybe think this is a good idea, that one of our colleagues, Holly, she is our mindfulness guru in the office. So I think we could, in a later episode, maybe just invite her over to talk a bit about it and maybe lead us in some practices.
Definitely, it'll be a treat for all the listeners.
Yeah, I think she'll definitely be up for that. So I think that's what we're looking to do as well in the future, give some kind of mindfulness, kind of maybe some short episodes of mindfulness, just again to help people practice these routines in their everyday life. So mindfulness is purely about living your life in the present moment. Often you might notice that your mind is wandering off from things that may have happened or things that have yet to happen. And this lack of control of your awareness can lead to low mood, anxiety and stress. Mindfulness is not necessarily, switching off from doing this, because we are human and that's what we do, we think. But instead of beating ourselves up for doing this or judging whether those thoughts, those feelings are good or bad, mindfulness really looks at accepting the present moment as is. And it can be such a liberating experience. It's often looked at as the starting point to making those changes that you would like to see in your life, as was mentioned earlier. That noticing what it is that we're fighting against, what it is that we're working with, is the starting point to make those changes that we're looking to see. And essentially, we're looking to take that control back. We're looking to create that space between the thoughts and the feelings that just aren't serving us, that's just not serving us in terms of carrying them about with us from our day to day. And to help with that, we have some formal mindfulness meditation practices and also informal practices designed to employ some mindfulness when we're out and about in our everyday lives. So whether you're at the shops, going to Greg's, just sitting in the house, what to do is, if you weren't looking to do a meditation as per se, maybe doing one in the middle of Asda isn't the best idea. So we do have some informal tools as well that can allow you to ground yourself in the present moment. So Jennifer, what are the benefits you've felt that you've been able to take away after working with LAMH?
Better breathing techniques, actually thinking and taking a breath, and basically thinking, is this going to affect my whole day? So what support did you engage with that helped you with that? Basically coping techniques, meditation, and thinking of the positive things. So what was it you were originally looking to get out of working with the service? What were your goals? Feeling that I wasn't alone and feeling more comfortable that I can speak to people when I do have my down days. And do you feel more able to do these things? Do you feel like you've achieved these goals or working towards them? Definitely. I feel like if I do have my down days, I can speak to my friends, people that I can trust, my family. What were your kind of first feelings before you engaged with the service? How did you feel going into it? Nervous, worried that all this wasn't just in my head and that I wasn't going to get better, and feeling just alone. And now after kind of working with the service and learning those techniques you spoke about, how do you feel maintaining your wellbeing out with the service moving forward now? Moving forward now, I know that I have these coping strategies, and if I do have my down days, I just use them, go to people that love me, and knowing that I'm not alone. And you feel more comfortable now approaching those kind of loved ones for support? Yes, because I know that they're there for me. Anything you would like to add or share about your experience for anybody who's thinking about being referred down? For me, I would take the opportunity and do it, because it's changed my life for the better. Because if it wasn't for this, I'd still be where I was when I first started. For me, it's just, if I can help one person like myself, then that's the best thing you can hope for.
I think I'm the same as Jamie. I came in a wee bit sceptical of mindfulness, and it's, a big part of my own life now. And, I don't want to give too much away. Don't want to give any spoilers in the mindfulness episode. There's key words in mindfulness and key things that you'll learn that are so simple. And once you can kind of get your head around them and accept them into
that word acceptance
into your life, it can be quite powerful for yourself. So it's another great course that we run.
Yeah, definitely. So that runs over the course of the 4 weeks, and every week just looks to kind of enhance that understanding of mindfulness as a concept before we go to practice it. And also what we'll do within those courses is we'll look at the scientific evidence, behind it, the structural changes in your brain, the impact that learning a new skill has on your habits is really important. So what we'll do is, as we said, we're chapping it a bit to talk a bit more about it, but we'll be releasing a podcast specifically about the idea of mindfulness, and we'll release a couple of practices for you to practice on your own.
Definitely. So not every point will be relevant to everybody, in the groups, but from facilitating the course and hearing the feedback, there's always something that's going to resonate with you. Usually each week you'll find one wee thing, or you'll pick out the big things over the few weeks there. It's just about taking what you need from the course and building information or coping strategies that you've learned into your daily life and helping you make the changes for the future. Yeah,
absolutely. So in the groups, obviously it's a wee bit more kind of generic, but as Lucy said, it's all about taking wee snippets at least and moulding it into how that can be relevant for you. And just before we finish up, just a wee kind of quick note on the one-to-ones that we also said that you can be referred in for as well. So the one-to-one sessions, that's what we use the worksheets from the mindfulness, from Living Life to the Full, Anxiety Workshop, Low Mood, that we use the worksheets from these different sessions, and that's what we say, we kind of tailor them depending on their needs and outcomes that we find out and that we identify in that initial meeting. So the content, whether it be the kind of group or the one-to-ones, that's what we're basing our support around and trying to make that relevant where we can to your needs.
I think that's quite an interesting part of the job in itself, as well as kind of getting to sit with all the resources that we have from the vast range of workshops and just the kind of information that we do have, and getting to sit and really mould it to the person that we're working with. And it's a really nice experience going along and sitting with that person you're working with and going, right, let's work through this using these different worksheets, these different parts of the course, and it really is just personal for them.
I don't know about you, Lucy, as well, but I think having that access to those resources and those materials is actually beneficial for our mental health as well, because, the job that we are doing, the conversations we're having with people, we need to make sure that we are also kind of looking after us to be in a place to do that. And I think, definitely with kind of some of the stuff from mindfulness, from Living Life to the Full, I know I look to apply it in my personal life as well, and it helps me. Do you kind of feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I'll pull little things, or I'll be thinking something and I'll remember a bit from Living Life to the Full or mindfulness, and I'll go, right, practice what you preach. I think me and you were having that conversation this morning, and it's very much it helps us keep ourselves in the right direction, and it's a great thing for like you've said, working in this kind of service in this sector, and being able to actually say to people, look, I've used this myself, or I have used this, or I've been able to incorporate this. It makes it
easier to facilitate as well. 100%. It makes it a lot easier to facilitate, and just absolutely kind of touching on what you said there, is really important for us to we don't have the right coping strategies, but just because they work for us doesn't mean it works for everybody else. But that's what we're saying, it's just about kind of finding what works for you.
Definitely.
Okay. That's a wrap. That's us. This has done episode 3. So hopefully you are a bit more informed about the service and the role of myself and Lucy as kind of mental health and wellbeing workers. Well, did you enjoy that? Does hearing about your job, does that make you sound a bit more, look back and kind of feel good? Kind of looking at the work that we do? Definitely. I say it all the time, I'm super lucky. I wake up in the morning and I go, oh, that's good, I can't go to work today. And I do genuinely, I love the job, enjoy working with my colleagues and getting to meet new people and, help new people find these coping strategies and make these changes that they want to make and that they may need to make as well. But, I'm very lucky to be in a position where I do love my job. I could talk about this forever though, so I'll cut myself off. I know, I don't know how long we've left the tape rolling, but all we'll do is we'll wrap up there. But just a wee thank you to Jennifer, Kerry Ann and Megan, who were happy to share their experience in their time with the service. We really appreciate the feedback. As always, take care of yourself, keep yourself safe, and we'll catch up with you all next time. See you later. Bye.